AEW Grand Slam. The return of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, versus the return of Nigel McGuinness, an old rival from the Ring of Honor days. Wednesday, Dynamite Grand Slam edition, Arthur Ashe Stadium, New York. Excalibur, Taz, and Tony Schiavone on the call of the evening. We're going to get into a little bit of, can we survive 3 weeks in a row without Swerve Strickland? Can we introduce former major debuts in the WWE land moving to AEW tonight? We had a AEW debut, and we'll get into that. We're going to talk about all the highlights and delights. I'm your host, Bryan, the Hype Ballard, back at it again with Tap Out Talk. We're going to start out the night. We start out with a bang, and we get right into the Bryan Danielson versus his music hits, but we get no entrance. And then we get into a little bit further into the mode, and we're going to get Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness straight out the gate. There is a bell, and the crowd is already alive for this one, and both men just stare each other down. And they lock up, and there's an uppercut by Nigel, possesses a counter-strike by Danielson. We get a lot of work back and forth in this one, and I would say it's a 20-minute match that really kind of gave us a nice sense of the return of Nigel McGuinness in a one-on-one competition. It was nice to see this rematch and this, flame reunite a little bit. McGuinness catching Danielson with some mounted punches. Danielson rolls over with some of his own, and Nigel's back on top. But who's getting the advantage? Well, nobody. Danielson locks in the label lock. Go a little bit further in the match. McGuinness eats the ring post at one point, and both men stretch each other out in the ring post. McGuinness returns, and McGuinness locks on the Dungeon of London submission, but Danielson gets to the ropes. A little bit later on in the matchup, we go about 5 more minutes ahead. And then at this point, we get Danielson with hammer punches trying to open up McGuinness up. Nigel tries to escape, but he won't let go. Torque. Will Nigel give up? Yes. The end. 20 minutes, 43 seconds. Bryan Danielson ends up getting the win here in his return match. Post-match, we get Christian Cage walk into the ring. Is he going to cash in his contract? Just as he's about to sign it, Kip Sabian sneaks up behind him, steals the pin out of his hand. And at the end of the day, he leaves. So great opening matchup, and I thought it was actually smart to open up with Bryan Danielson in this one, giving him a little bit of the, intro show. And people were going to stay around for Bryan Danielson in the World Championship. And it was also good to have Nigel McGuinness out there as well. So we get on, and we move ahead to Hook versus Roderick Strong. We ultimately get Roderick Strong and Hook in a very quick matchup for the FTR title. And then in post-match, we get ultimately Schiavone with the mic. And he actually ends up retiring the FTR championship tonight. Him and Taz hug. He says, Hook says that now all good things must come to an end. And he wants to thank every wrestler that ever competed for the FTW title. And he wants to thank the fans who supported the title from this moment forward. Officially, it is retired, and he hands it to his father, Taz, and they have a real genuine moment. I think it's very appropriate to retire this title at this point in time. It was introduced when Taz was the manager of Team Taz, and had its good run. And then his son, Hook, had a good run with the title as well. But now, it is at that point where we move ahead. And it had a good run. This is the year. 2024 is the year of saying goodbye to things properly. We have the retirement of Sting. We have the soon-to-be retirement of Bryan Danielson, and now the FTR Championship. Let's go on. And we move ahead to a tag team matchup. And I must say, I'm really starting to enjoy Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in this tag team, throw-together tag team match. The United Groups. We got the Young Bucks. They need to be on AEW Dynamite a little bit more, because the Young Bucks do tag team championship right, and that is why they're the champions. Basically, Nicholas and Will start us off but Matthew comes in and rips down Will from behind. Both Bucks take out Will, and Kyle's in reverse back elbows. We get a lot of back and forth in this matchup. Ultimately, a senton powerbomb for a pin, but Kyle in for the save. Then he gets thrown out of the ring. The Bucks isolate Will. We get an EVP trigger that is countered. Will off the ropes, double Oscutter. The cover, but Knox is slow to the count. It's a 1 and a 2. The Bucks go for a double super kick, but they miss, and Kyle with the power bomb. A face buster. We get the hidden blade. Ultimately, at one point in this matchup, we get a very nice double styles clash from Will and Kyle. Very much in unison, very the rocker style. But I want to say, this potentially could be a nice nod to AJ Styles in the Styles Clash. I did some interesting looking, and I seen that AJ Styles' contract was set to expire soon. Set to be in. No exact date in mind, but could this be a way of recruiting AJ Styles to AEW? I'll let you guys discuss that and tell me your thoughts. I do think AJ would fit the mold perfectly in AEW and be able to do a lot more with his career if he chose to do so. Still a light work schedule on the road as well. Also, I could see Will Ospreay has recruited people like before. He got Ricochet into AEW, didn't he? But now, we're going to move ahead. In this matchup, we do get a super kick party. EVP trigger, and the Bucks retain at the 20-minute and 4-second match. We got two 20-minute matches, and they are still the champions on this one. And we're going to move ahead, and speaking of the former champion, Tony is in the ring, and he is ready as Prince Nana is out to give us an update on Swerve Strickland, the former champ. Tony runs down and talks about Strickland and how he's had that bad take over the last month. Tony Schiavone talking, doing the interview. Nana says there is nothing mentally that can't stop Swerve, but physically he is not cleared to return. But he is getting closer every day. Whose house? Montel Vatavius Porter, MVP, makes his AEW debut tonight on Dynamite, complete with his cane, his suit, and everything that comes with him. MVP agrees that Strickland is the most dangerous man in AEW, and he says that Swerve's 2024 will be highlighted and studied for years to come. He lists all the men he's beat, like Samoa Joe, among others. He also says Swerve lost the AEW title at All In, and he saw his own house get burnt down, and he asks why the man that burned his house down is still walking around, and the reason is bad management. And he alludes, and he talks about Swerve Strickland possibly needing better management representation. Hands a card for what would be the new version of possibly the Hurt Business to Prince Nana. And I can see Bobby Lashley making an entrance here. I believe we could even see a little bit further with that, with a Bobby Lashley MVP bringing their way into AEW and starting a program with Swerve. Ultimately, that's kind of where we leave this segment at. And we move on to Mariah May versus Yuka Sakazaki for the championship of the women's world. Yuka wastes no time as she hits a splash from the top of May on the floor. Yuka smacks Mariah's face off. We get both ladies in a back and forth matchup. Mariah chokes Yuka in the ropes across the ring, hits a drop to Yuka's back into the 1 and a 2. Mariah puts Yuka on the top rope, double chops. Yuka cuts off the Hurricane Rana, but she does a version of the Tarantula. Mariah recovers, looking for the Mayday. It's countered with a 1 and a 2 on a roll-up pin. Yuka counters another attack and a backslide for a 1 and a 2. Fast forward in the matchup, we then get Yuka at the top rope in a magical girl splash. May gets the knees up. Big knee to the gut. May with the Storm Zero, and that is the end of that one. A finishing move is still a finisher in AEW Women's World. Mariah May, champion, at 6 minutes, 44 second mark. We get Mariah May, but even more importantly, we get Willow Nightingale coming down post-match. But then Mina Shirakawa has arrived in AEW. May hits Willow with the belt and runs up the ramp, and she swings Mina around. Mina looking a little disgruntled or upset. Yuka's up the ramp. She runs at Mariah in the tunnel. as Mina and Yuka come to a bit of a standstill, but going with Mariah. It'll be interesting to see where these two Stardom stars go from here. And then, as we like to say, it's time for the main event. Jon Moxley coming out. And if he wins, he gets a Darby's title shot on the line. Darby Allin defending that. Moxley working over Allin in the corner. Moxley comes out in a camo attire. Very Sergeant Slaughter-ish. Kind of had a fun idea with maybe a boot camp training segment with the Sarge. Just for fun, of course, but I did a little short here. I'll leave it there. But Moxley works over Allin in the corner. He gets the chokes. He breaks the count at a 4 count. Moxley with Beal again against the ropes. And then ultimately, we get a little bit of back and forth action in this one. A lot of hard-hitting, fast-paced action in a Darby Allin type matchup. Darby hits to the floor, up on the ring mate. Darby traps the arm of Moxley at one point in the ring post, tears off the ring post top cover, and shoves Mox's arm down in there. I've never seen a move like that in all my years of watching wrestling, so I like that we got a little something different here in the main event of Grand Slam. Darby to the floor, up on the apron. Darby again trapping in the ropes. Darby from the top hits a coffin drop from the floor. Allin throws Moxley into the ring, but he goes for all on the other side, and that doesn't quite work, and he throws himself at Moxley. Darby throwing himself at Moxley quite a bit, but ultimately, fast forwarding, we get Allin gets Moxley in the ring. A code red for a 1 and a 2. Darby Allin rips off the turnbuckle pad to the corner. Allin tries to get Jon's face into it, but we get a kick by Moxley to Allin. And yes, Moxley then into the cover. Allin in a springboard splash. Darby works on the submission. Move a little bit ahead in this one even further. What is going on with this story? You just know Mox has got to come out on top to keep this story with Bryan Danielson going. Darby looking to go a little bit out of it. Ultimately, Darby with it very top, and he hits Jon. Right, ultimately, Marina then is now on the apron and gets a distraction for an avalanche death driver. An avalanche death rider, and that's going to be the end. 1, the 2, the 3. Jon Moxley, the 18-minute, 24-second minute mark of the match. And we got Jon Moxley. Bryan Danielson. Danielson out to choke Moxley from behind with a old school tie that he found somewhere. Marina attacks and does pack in Claudio, and here comes Commander and Private Party to help out. Danielson on the mic, and he says he wants war. Bryan Danielson declares war, and it will be Danielson and Moxley at Wrestle Dream, and Bryan will kick his ass. The match is made and official for Wrestle Dream, and the show goes off the air with that challenge set and met. I feel like Grand Slam did the Saturday night's main event thing. Let's get into that, into the final thoughts. If you like AEW, hit that like button. And want to say just shout out and thank you to all the new subscribers on the channel. I enjoy our comments. I enjoy our talks. Let's keep them coming and let's keep wrestling strong. Let's get into our final thoughts for Grand Slam Dynamite. We got another week without Swerve, but we kept the story going. I find it very interesting that MVP making his debut as a possible manager for Swerve. I think it would be a way better move. But I can see him holding that off for a little bit. But ultimately, I can see it being a bait and switch with MVP, looking at a Swerve, if you will, and betraying Strickland, and actually getting into where Bobby Lashley makes his debut in AEW. Also, what about AJ Styles possibly being in AEW? The Styles Clash was a nice double nod to that possibility within a contract expiring in WWE in the immediate future. And Wrestle Dream is set up for Danielson and Moxley. The story we've all been wondering where it's going and what it's going to do. But it really is a dream match in this situation. We also get the perfect setup with Grand Slam being booked the way it should be. It's kind of like the Saturday night's main event, if you will, that actually will set up the next PLE or the pay-per-view in this case. And I'm really liking what they did here tonight overall. We had 3 20-minute matches almost, spaced out between beginning, middle, and end. And then we got a little bit of filler in between. Well, I'm going to head out of here because this is the end right now of what we got going on, but let's keep the conversation going. Reach out and let me know. I'm out. Like, share, subscribe. It's not goodbye, guys. It's just game over.